Guinard.
Any special way to spell Mary?
I am here because I was convicted of 1 count of grand theft, 1 count of forgery. I was the executive director of an organization here in the Boise area, and I stole over $100,000. I can remember how it started. Was with a company credit card. I purchased a personal purchase with the intention of paying back, never got caught. And it kind of snowballed from there. And so I had that aspect of it where it was complete credit card use, purchases, entertainment, travel, etc. over, I can't remember the exact amount of times but that was probably over a 9-month period or so. And then it got to the point where I actually had written out checks to myself, and I also, I'm trying to figure out the word to use, I falsified invoices. Okay, we were a unique organization. We were very small. I was a full-time employee, and I had 1 full-time employee that worked for me. Other than that, we had our board of directors, and we were volunteer-based. So really the only 2 people in the office was myself and my assistant. So the only 2 people involved in managing the accounting system and the file system was myself and my assistant. So it was very easy for me to have access to that. Basically what I did was we used a typical accounting software. I believe it was Quicken, off the top of my head. And so what I would do is if I wrote a check to myself, I could easily go into Quicken, input the information, put the expense report into the files, and chalk it up to an invoice that would be typical of an invoice that we would receive for that time of year. And it was an agreement actually that I had with my board president. If I ever used my card, I was able to go ahead and just count my personal expenses versus my business expenses, write a check for my personal expenses, and call it a wash. And I did that in the beginning, and then when I stopped doing that, basically the credit card statement would come in. I was in charge of paying the credit cards, wrote the check, and it was never questioned. I had somebody that I knew who came in and did some work for me, like installed a new phone system for us, did some moving for us, cleaned out some storage areas, some different jobs, and I had paid him, and then I double paid him. And then when he called, said, wait, I'm getting this double payment. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead and send it back. And I washed that out of the books and kept it. So that was almost like a falsifying an invoice. And it wasn't questioned because this person knew me, these people trusted me, and yet I went ahead and falsified writing that check out as an invoice. So they really leaned heavily on me for that financial piece. But when I would set those reports that are generated, basically canned reports in front of them, they'd see the numbers. There was no questions asked because we were bringing in so much revenue. It wasn't even noticed. And so there was never questions asked. I remember the first time I wrote that check, and I thought, well, it's not a whole lot. I can reimburse it. It's not that big a deal. And it was just a snowball.
What's some advice you'd give them?
A very strong process on check and balance. Be very educated on reading financials. You have to trust your employees, but you still need to watch your employees. I think that is key. It's not a bad thing to question. And I think with the nonprofits, you tend to get into the cause and the feel good, and this is what we've got to do to make things better. You're still a business, and you still need to look at your books like a corporation, really. And so I think, for a board president, vice president, and a treasurer, is ensuring that every board member is educated into finances. I think another thing that is important is audits. I was audited 2.5 months before I was arrested, and I passed my audit with flying colors. And that was a national audit firm. but they don't come in, and if they had looked closer, kind of at the everyday steps, the invoices versus the checkbook, they would have found it in a heartbeat. It was not difficult. It was not a huge cover-up. But they went through bank statements and made sure I had all the contracts from the last 3 years I ever signed with a vendor. And they went through this checklist making sure I had documentation. But there was no audit on your everyday financials. And I think that would be a very beneficial process for the board to even direct, to oversee, for the board treasurer to double check the daily finances, and kind of get their hands dirty and get in there and look and see what's going on. Because for me to pass an audit with a national firm when all of that was going on is pretty crazy. And it was after that audit, and I think it was July of 2008, I was arrested in August of 2008, I just got rave reviews about the amazing job I was doing. I mean, we were an example of one of the better affiliates in the country. And nothing was caught. So I think that is really important, is, again, those check and balances from the board of directors, not only just staff, especially a lot of nonprofits, they can't afford to hire large staff. When you have 2 or 3 people in the office, and they've all got their hand in the pot working on the books, you need someone to step in and audit that and see exactly what's going on.